welcome to the Mind Chimp podcast. Hey Lloyd, welcome to the Mind Chimp podcast. How are we doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm wonderfully well, my friend, wonderfully well. So, Lloyd, before we even get into the good stuff, the first thing I kind of want you to do is I want you to pick 4 numbers from 1 to 100 for me, please.
1 to 100. I'll go with 22.
Yep.
It's the date of my birthday. I'll go with number 10 because Harry Kane wears that.
Okay.
I'll go with 82 because I'm thinking football and there's no footballers I can think of 82.
Okay.
And I'll go with 50.
50. Awesome. You probably know what's coming with these numbers, but we'll see later on. So, I guess, yeah. When I ask my guests to come on the show, Lloyd, the first thing I do is ask them to tell me what their log line is. So can you remember what you said yours was?
Yeah, so I would say that I curiously pursue the truth in a playful way.
Okay, and I think we're gonna jump into that in just a sec for sure, for sure. So when you was in school and the teacher said, Lloyd, you should look you in the eye, and this is baby Lloyd, maybe 5 years old Lloyd. And she said, Lloyd, what is it you want to be when you grow old? Like older? What is it you would say?
I want to play for Tottenham up front.
Okay.
That's it. Yep, that's it.
That's a goal. Yeah.
That's it. Well, you asked me this question last time, and I thought, I think I thought too far ahead, and I thought, no, that's always been there, scoring the winning goal, which I did when I made myself on Football Manager back in 2011.
Okay, fair enough.
Again, we'll leave that there.
Awesome. So I mean, obviously, Lloyd, we kind of talk back and forth when we're talking about podcasts and whatnot, but maybe from our listeners who don't know who you are, maybe you could give us a bit of a whistle-stop tour of kind of where you've come from, all the way up to kind of where you are now and what you're doing now.
Okay. Wow, that's where I'm coming from. I'll try and keep this to the point. So 1 of 7, lots of brothers and sisters. All the boys begin with L, all the girls begin with H, but my mum and dad are called Barry and Sandra, so you figure that one out. Went through my studies. I studied sports sciences, so I got a sports science degree. I then dipped in and out. I did a master's degree in coaching sciences. I then did my PGC, became a teacher, and I taught something I never studied, which was anatomy and physiology, which I loved and grew a passion for. I became a teacher trainer in that area. I then, in between, I did some freelance work. So I did randomly, as things are with me, I did some freelance work in Doha, in Qatar, delivering health and safety training, or kind of trainer type stuff. I then got a job at EDF Energy. So I was a simulation instructor. So I was designing training programs for like Homer Simpson's job, which actually is quite difficult. I had free reign. I went Jonathan Ross then, didn't I? I had free reign from a pedagogical perspective, and then kind of worked my way up into my current role as head of digital and innovative learning.
Okay. So kind of a bit of a, I guess when I was doing a bit of research on you, I noticed kind of the background which you mentioned about, the Homer Simpson. Kind of why that? Like what was the need of the urge, or what made you go there?
Well, I loved teaching. I love the connection with the students, and my final year as a teacher, I think it was my best ever. So they'd have their exams, and I got to a point where I could predict between 5 or 10% in anatomy and physiology if students were going to pass or fail, broken down into particular modules as well. Don't get me wrong, my ego's coming out here. I had a fantastic set of students.
Okay.
I just loved that connection. And if I'm totally honest with you, I've always been scared of this thing inside of all of us where we become stale. And I used to look around some people in the office, and I used to obviously train a lot of people, as I've already said, and they just didn't have, something, the spark had just gone. So I wanted to leave on a high, really. That, and I've got a lot more time back, but that passion inside of me, I wanted to take that somewhere else. And the chap who interviewed me at EDF Energy, his name's Mike Cogburn. He's a good friend now. He's since left the organization. He just got it. He was like someone like you and I. He saw the world differently. and let me do my thing from a learning perspective. It's had some failures, and so I could sense by speaking to him that I'd be working for the right person. I think that's always massively important, to work for the right person. I believe we work for individuals, not for organizations, however big or small they are.
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned about stale. I kind of don't want to jump into that, but I want you to remind me if we don't. But
I'll make a note.
Yes, please do, please do. But I guess kind of it's interesting. You kind of you mentioned, and this is going completely digressing off topic anyway, like we tend to do. But in talking about kind of you leave, you work for people, not necessarily organisations, and I think that's really true. I remember there's a couple of times where my boss has left, and instantly once your boss goes, the team dynamic changes, and you instantly become a bit kind of unstuck, and the company's still the company, like nothing really changes, but it's really interesting when that piece moves, and the piece being your manager, right? You kind of go, so much doesn't feel right now.
Yeah, I think everyone is absolutely wary of the douchebag, excuse the phrase, because the douchebag aren't aware of themselves, are they? I think that's the biggest thing for me, and I think it's really important to be grounded. I think it's really important to know that life comes first. Young family, and lots of people who work for me got family members as well. Family members, kids and whatnot to look after. And if you work for someone else's ego, it's just never going to be fun. Actually, I'll turn around and I'll look at a book called The Happiness Advantage by Sean Agle, and there's actually research to say that if the relationship between a manager and a worker is stressful, it can increase the likelihood of having a heart attack. So the science supports our opinion here.
I mean, this is always good. This is always a good start to a podcast when we bring science into it. I love it, Lloyd. So I guess this kind of links in, I guess, to your logline a little bit, and kind of, yeah, why did you go with that logline, that kind of summary?
So the key words I kind of had in there, I think curious. I think I'm really interested in new things, new people, how the world works, what the world looks like. I remember my granddad, before he passed away, he said, everyone knows about the World War II, but no one could ever smell the trenches. That's always stuck with me. I want to understand how things work. And I think that's either inside people or it's not. I think on the pursuit thing, for me, it's a journey. So whatever I'm trying to do, I'll try and have the end in mind. And I mean, so I would use the word try with an exclamation mark to be patient. I think sometimes it's just grounding yourself and saying, okay, I'm getting quite stressed out in life, in work or whatever, but what's the end point? And I think when you can take a step back and reflect on the end point, I think that helps me. I think the truth, I've already anally spoken about the happiness advantage. I think I'm always saying, okay, my opinions, how do these fare against facts? Just because there's a fact presented today, that also doesn't mean it's a fact forever. And I think people forget that. They'll hear, research today has been released that states, what are we on now? Eggs are bad for you. They've got high levels of saturated fat, but someone's going to do a research on that tomorrow and it might change.
Yeah.
But so people get very wed to even facts sometimes. I think you've still got to be open to looking into new things. And that's why I love research in any guys. And at the end, I'm sounding a bit serious. I think it's just important to be playful. I think no one's getting out of here alive. I think the risk is that we all take ourselves too seriously. Being a parent is the most important thing to me, and I really want my kids to see that the playful energy I have, the silliness.
It's interesting you mentioned facts, and I think facts are like people's opinions. Sometimes you get so wedded to your own opinion that you don't have the, I the way I see opinions is, I might, example, we'll use it in the learning context, I hate e-learning, but actually something might come later on down the line and actually it makes me reevaluate my opinion, and at which point I'll hold my hand up and go, I was wrong, you know what, I get it. But I think the problem is when you own a certain opinion for so long, it becomes really scary to kind of change that opinion, and that's like going back to kind of a fact. What you was mentioning is the fact is a fact now, but there might be research data later on down the line which kind of challenges that fact and actually turns it on its head. So what do you think, I'm just bringing it into learning for a second, but why do you think learning struggle with that? So, I mean, let's look at something like learning styles, for years and years, and then all of a sudden it's like learning styles aren't a thing. And then you still have people who turn around and go, actually, I've been making a fortune and my whole career talking about learning styles. Who used to tell me it's not a thing? And I don't know if it's just I don't think it's our industry. I think every industry is like this. I think because we're in the niche of L&D, but we think it's just us, and we get that little box syndrome of, oh, it must be an L&D problem and not just a generic industry problem of wherever you work. But if I was to say to you kind of, why do you think there's so many close... in fact, it's a two-part question. Is there a lot of closed minds within L&D, considering we're meant to have this open mind? And if he is, why do you think that is?
I think I'd agree with you. I concur with your opinions. I think, the risk here is that I'll talk generally, but I'll talk on my observations because I don't know everyone in L&D. But so what I see on social media, what I see in public, a lot of the times is an area, first of all, that's imprecise. I think learning, development, training, education, it's not a Venn diagram, it's what the hell is, it's imprecise, it's not a clear area. And the thing that gets me, it's not a clear area, yet some people decide to talk with such clarity. And so that kind of clarity is based on objective foundations, I'd say, or without evidence, and we come back to the truth. So that's where my head's at. I think, to your point about, some people are more vocal than others. And there's kind of sometimes weird, say learning styles you mentioned earlier. There's sometimes like this patronizing tone. Mm-hmm. It's like I'm tapping my nose here because it's kind of, we've got the secret and we know it's not learning styles, it's learning preferences.
Yeah.
It's metacognition. It's like, what? And you're like, come on. And I think everyone's trying to appear like an expert, and everyone's answering questions. So when everyone's answering questions, who's bloody asking them, right? It could be, like you say, everyone wants to be an expert. And I think to your point about learning styles, I think there's always an area that grated me, because if you are in the education sector, generally you'll talk about things like learning styles, and you'll use the term like learning preferences, because when you have the conversation with the student, you're not bogged down by those types of semantics. You'll just say, okay, how can I help you do what you need to do? And then you'll probably inadvertently touch upon metacognition, because you're giving them this YouTube channel, you're showing them a podcast, you're demonstrating a technique to something, they're like dicing a heart up, whatever. But what I found is learning styles is one thing, but actually no one in L&D has ever spoke to me about differentiation. That is absolutely huge in education. Everyone focuses on one specific thing in our industry. I think there's other conversations to have. The other thing I would say is back to that earlier point about science might prove something different in the future. There's such a thin line between learning styles and the preferences. As I said, I'm going to step off my my box here. I think my frustrations come through.
I think it's a good thing. So when I do these podcasts, I am aware that I sound like I'm giving LD a bad name. And the questions I pose, I try not to be weighted, I try to be really impartial. But I think we have to have these conversations out loud in order for us to go, okay, yeah, it talks a point. Because I will be the first person to hand up and say, I kick e-learning like there's no tomorrow. And when I say e-learning, I'll be very precise. A click next to e-learning. That's what I'm talking about. And
yeah, it's horrendous.
Yeah. And but the problem is it's an easy thing to kick. And like I realised it was probably last year. I was like, I'm just gonna stop talking about this now. It's like it's pointless. It's pointless. And what I see as well is this regurgitation of someone's idea and wrapping it up as your idea, and that's fine. That's fine. There's that whole thing of actually you might not even realise you've seen that a year later on down the line. I mean, you do think it's generally your idea. But I don't know. Like, I want this podcast. I will do a podcast around L&D and talk about everything what I love about it. fundamentally there's a reason why we're still in what we're doing. But I feel like we need to have these conversations and address these things. And I think sometimes it can feel like we're being very general, and when we have to be in a podcast like this for sure. But I think there's so much value in having this conversation and saying, we use a learning styles there because it's an easy one to talk about, but we have to have these conversations in order to either say shut up talking about it now, or actually, like you said, like there's better things to be talking about. So it's
I think it's kind of, I think the work that you do is great, and you have a great mind, and as you're talking there, it's kind of, we all adopt this kind of apologetic tone for having a critical thought. But actually, look at journalists. If we all had a journalistic mindset, progress would happen a lot quicker, right? Journalists ask the right questions, the questions that annoy people, the questions that spark the right type of debate. They don't, if a journalist interviewed, we've got Trump here at the moment, right? Journalists ask Trump easy questions. There'd be no digging around. There'd be no, what's your policy? When we look at trade deals, what do you specifically mean when you talk about the NHS? It would be all fluffy. It's important to ask these types of questions.
Yeah, and I think so. I did a post a couple of weeks ago about L&D being dead, and kind of, actually, is it a case of it just needs completely remastering? And actually, I would love to create a team and shape what I would want my team to look like. And actually, what I pretty much turned around and said is, there's other industries what are doing. There's a reason why all of a sudden media companies and marketing companies are stepping into L&D's turf, because they realise they can do these things better. And that's kind of my argument. And it's really interesting. I think it got like 15,000 views, but only a few comments. I was like, that kind of summed up the L&D for me, the community at the moment. There's many people kicking the dead horse, but actually, and I asked the question, if I'm wrong, tell me, if I'm right, tell me. And I literally got probably 5 comments on it. I was like, that's because there's so many people who're scared of change, because a lot of their livelihoods depend on maybe classroom or something. And then there's also some who really don't know, and kind of they're comfortable with sitting on that fence. And but I think you need these provocateurs, 100%. You need these people to challenge it. But then I also think you need to engage them in that conversation in order to get further with it, rather than it just being a statement and forgot about. So yeah.
Yeah, I'd also say there's probably a large audience in that 15,000 who are, the Facebook stalkers. They don't do much, but they're soaking it all up as well.
Yeah, definitely, and fair play to him. I was waiting for good debate on it. I was waiting, but build it and they will not come. So I guess, like, maybe for our listeners, maybe you can give us a bit of an overview of what a day in your professional life looks like.
Well, no day is the same. And the reason is I do an awful lot of travel. So I'm based in the southwest, about 20-minute train ride from Bristol. So maybe 2 or 3 times a week I'll be in London, which I love because the company I work for is flexible, so I don't have to move to the Grand Smoke. And when I'm in London, it might be one-to-ones with my boss, it might be senior leaders in the organisation I'm having conversations with, talking about their plans, talking about their people development bits and pieces. At the moment, a lot of my time's one-to-ones with team members. So we've gone through a restructure at the end of last year where in our department we removed manager positions. So as the head of, I've got a lot of direct line reports. So a lot of my time is also spent having those types of one-to-one conversations with my team members, making sure they're okay, making sure they're cool, and supporting them where possible, which I love because I love working with people. I absolutely have enjoyed that this year. And outside of that, probably once a month, I'm either speaking somewhere or I'm part of a conversation, like a breakfast morning, which again I enjoy because bringing the outside in is vitally important for my role. And then, like everyone else, really, I'm doing the boring stuff, the governance calls, the weekly head of function meeting calls. But I will try and be ruthless. With my time where possible. Yeah, it doesn't really sound fun, does it? But
no, I think it sounds awesome. I think I like the fact that the first thing you talked about was the people rather than the necessarily tech and innovation and whatever else. Like your first go-to that I listened to was talking about actually people in your team. So, and what? So how long have you been in the role of having these team members? Is it about what, 2 years, 3 years?
So I've been in this role for about two and a bit years with the new team structure since January, but in the role 2 and a bit years.
So what's been your biggest learning from the restructure to where you are now as a manager? And you can use. I think manager and leader are two different things, but equally important. But yeah, let's do it as a leader actually.
The biggest learning, be direct when you need to be direct. I think we all have an active voice. We spoke about it with you already, having an opinion. If you've got opinion, just say it. So when I started the role, it was, shit, I got the job. Oh, what do I do next? So I did my 100-day plan. I did everything like that. I went and, I did the tick box stuff. I went and spoke to the senior stakeholders. I was going to change the world. I was writing the strategy and all of those buzzwords. But yet you still sitting, maybe group meetings or other meeting, you got an opinion. And I think anyone really who works in innovation or creative areas, you've got this horrible thing where you're like, oh, for crying out loud, why is my brain always thinking different stuff? And once I got over that, that's the biggest thing really, because then I could see, I'm offering a different type of value here. And then you really get the sense of when everyone would do that, it is, diversity and inclusion in many ways, all of everyone's opinions. No one's right, no one's wrong, but you can then truly build. So yeah, I think that was the biggest learning curve for me.
Okay, that's really interesting. So kind of touching upon the buzzwords, I'm going to give you a few buzzwords now, and I want you to tell me what comes to mind.
God.
And yeah, don't think about it. Just tell me literally what comes to mind.
Yeah, I'm shutting my eyes. I'm just going to... It might be random.
Okay, you ready? Digital transformation.
Bullshit.
E-learning.
Too old.
Classroom.
Authentic.
Innovation.
Always happening.
The future of learning podcast.
A new chapter that's yet to be written.
Ooh, okay. So you can't give us this little bite size and kind of tell us what's happening. So I kind of want to get into this podcast, Lloyd, and your podcast is an awesome podcast. I'm personally a subscriber of it. I looked forward to it when it came out and stuff. But yeah, what?
Well, as I said before, you're a massive help. So what's the plan with it?
Yeah.
I think if I back to my thing I learned most, if I stick with my authentic voice, I got to a point where I felt that either I was not offering the value I intended, so the conversations were probably not authentic to me, not the people I was talking to later on, or I had lots of people who asked to be on the show, and some I asked to be on the show, and I just kind of cancelled that in the end. The people I spoke to, I absolutely loved it. And it felt for me, it was exciting. It was a new journey. I don't like BAU. Mm-hmm. I just felt I could offer something else. On top of that as well, at the same time I had a big personal investment in my charity work last year with the Going Sober for the November Foundation. That took a lot of energy out of me. And so with my creative juices, I've been planning something that I'd like to do probably around Q3 this year. And that's where, if I'm honest with you, that's where it's at.
Okay. So I don't want to dig into too much. I want it to be a surprise for your listeners and stuff. But yeah, talk to me a bit about this Movember, because obviously it was really important to you, like you mentioned. And if I'm right, and tell me if I'm wrong, because I could be. But the idea was it, there was awareness piece, weren't it, of your podcast for Movember? Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, the podcast itself was like this idea that I had, that everyone has, right? But I had at the time in order to really generate money for the charity. So my background a long time ago, I had a car crash and I had PTSD, and I really struggled. I really did struggle. It was a tough time, but through lots of support from therapy to loved ones, I got through it, and I wanted to do something significant to offer back to charities and raise awareness. So there's a stat that 3 out of every 4 suicides in the UK are male, and it's a very alarming statistic. The rise testicular cancer, great success rates if it's discovered earlier, but men being men, they don't talk about these types of things. And prostate cancer, by the World Health Organization predicts, by 2030, it will be the most prominent of all cancers, including cancers that both men and women can get. So there's a narrative there that I thought I could help out with. So what I tried to do really was start conversations. So I had like mates having a go at me because I was tweeting, check your balls and here's a diagram and how to do it. But they'd be in the shower weirdly and they'd be thinking about me, and it would prompt them to check their testicles and stuff like that. And I did a couple of speeches at conferences on mental health. And so that was it. So the link, and I digressed on that. Apology, because it's a passionate cause. And the link to the podcast was, I always had this idea, and then just penny dropped. How could I make them both work together? So do something. And in my utopian mind, every single episode would be sponsored by charity, and there'd be donations going in. And that didn't work. But what I did find was some very wonderful people and organizations did donate. And, we some of us had agreements to put their logos on my website, and I'd read out a bit during the podcast when people were asking me when I with my freelance hat on to go and speak at conferences. There were a couple mental health ones outside of L&D. I said, look, happy to do with it. All I would ask is, can you make a donation into this page? And, people donated. So that's where the idea was born from.
And I can remember, because I think you've got quite a good following on Instagram as well. Because I remember we was having conversations and I was talking about like, well, this is my approach, and you were saying actually you've got quite a good following on Instagram and whatnot. And I think I remember seeing I think it might have either been on your timeline on Instagram, like, or it might have been on Twitter, and it was kind of like an infographic and stuff of kind of going back to that, check your balls and stuff.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was so good to watch. It was so good to kind of watch, and for me, it was a good awareness piece. I'm more than happy to check my balls, but that doesn't mean that everybody is. And I thought, actually, if it's making me who's aware of this, then actually the people who aren't, actually, if that gives them that nudge what we need, then it's served its cause, right?
Yeah, definitely. Well, one of the intangible goals, I should say, that I had was to save someone's life. And so when I was like, oh God, I got to do this again, or I've been traveling all day in a hotel room, and I do one of my selfie videos that took me about 6 months to feel comfortable doing. It'll be it was that really goal that I couldn't see. Well, I thought, no, I want to do this. I need to do this. I'm all in. I'm all in.
Yeah. And I think it's really important that you mention that, Olin, because for anyone who, and I was talking to Ross from Good Practices podcast, and we was talking about podcasts, and he said, actually, I spend a lot of my time telling people not to do podcasts because they don't understand the effort and the time and kind of, let's just say I've got 30 podcasts now, raw files. I've got to edit them, cut them. I've got to do all the audio on them. And I say cut them, I do minimum editing. The only thing I do is balance the volumes. But when you go through your social and you go through kind of, okay, they didn't want this bit in, or, I've recorded them talking about breakfast, which probably isn't that important. But I don't think anyone sees it. And then I kind of think you did that, and then you had your blog, which you kind of capture stuff. And we were talking probably before we went live about actually how much time it is. And it's got to be important, right? It's got to be important for you to kind of make you want to do it. Because I'll be honest, sometimes when I'm finishing work and then I go, okay, I've got 2 podcasts back to back on, I'm like, I just kind of want my evening. Like,
yeah, I know. I messaged you earlier. Like, I'm having my dinner. I was like, okay, mate, okay. But I fully get it. You have to go back to that curiosity thing I said at the start. It's either in you or it's not. I think because if you're going to do it properly, it is an investment in time. But for me, I came away from last year thinking, wow, I kind of felt like if I wanted to in the future, not if I wanted to, but it opened up a potential different career path. maybe in comms and marketing. And I just enjoyed learning about that stuff, about, the types of pictures to put in LinkedIn versus Twitter, because you'll get a better interaction and engagement on the algorithm. All that type of stuff was great. But I'm with you. It's people just think it's just flick on the microphone and do it. Because even now, like, I know where you'll be at. I know exactly where your head is at. Is this type of conversation you were expecting? Are you pivoting? How you can move the conversation on? Man, the respect I got for anyone that does a podcast, does it properly, stupidly high. I know what it's like in that place right now.
Well, it's kind of like, I think if I put out 80 hours worth of podcasts, I reckon it's kind of double, triple the hours in what it takes to kind of put it all together. Yeah. And I just think that's the stuff what kind of happens behind closed doors. And I think for season 3, I will completely change my approach. I don't know how yet. I think I know how, but that's going to be a completely different approach, and it's going to require even more time to do. And it's just going to go on.
Yeah. No, sorry. I was just going to say I'm with you, because in the first series, I started you start to then consider, on a Sunday night at 10:30, potentially outsourcing. And I tried it, and I was just like, nah, I'm not doing this. And I paid someone to edit. I didn't use it. Did it all myself again. And it's again that type of stuff. So, you cut, if you cut corners, you might as well not do it.
Yeah. I think that's a great shout. Definitely. I think it's an interesting one, and everything what I do with this MindChimp brand is my experiments, and I'm lucky in the fact of my brand. If it fails, it fails. If it wins, it wins. If a podcast wins, great. If it fails, great. I've learned a shitload from doing a podcast. I've learned a shitload from building community. I learned a shitload from kind of doing meetups and creating events. Like all this and that MindChimp, like the amount of personal learning what I've got from it is so valuable. And it's like you said, you start thinking about comms and marketing and there's its value for us personally, I guess, along with your own personal goal. But yeah, it's an interesting one, and kind of talking of failures, and I've had a few things what I failed in the past, and hopefully none of these will be them, and so far they haven't been. But I'm due one, definitely due one.
Mm-hmm.
If I was to ask you, kind of, so we go through this corporate world of kind of saying, you need to be the best. And when it comes for interviews, you need to be the best. And you need to say, I did this, I did that, and everything was successful. And I think actually there's more value to saying, when did you fail? And actually, so if I was to say to you, Lloyd, what if you was to write out a failure resume or a failure CV, what would your failure CV look like? And maybe it's just one of the things, but what jumps out to you when I say that?
Yeah, it's a lovely question. I think there's not anything per se that sticks out, because if something happens, I'll be like, oh man, this is gutting, but I can very quickly get over it. But I think if I was to then surmise some of the attributes or characteristics, is better term to use. I think initially, for anyone in learning development, I think it's been subservient. You go into your senior stakeholders in the business unit and you want to impress, and they say, can you do that? Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, we can do that. Oh yeah, can we do this? No, we can do. And then you're just a yes person. You're not whatever phrase you want to use, business partnering, whatever. You're not really challenging. You're not adding value. I think that for me has been a failure, and it's a failure I see in a lot of people. But I think we'll all go back to the earlier thing. We're all on our journey. I think I'm horrendous at time management. Honestly, horrendous. If I had to go and pick up my kids, well, which I often do at school, I cannot. I've got no concept of time between 2:30 and 3, and that's not some weird joke. It's just that's it. So that gets me into a lot of troubles. But again, I think just be honest with people, right? So that comes back. Just don't bullshit. Just be honest, which I'm learning to be. Failures as well. If I now reflect on some projects. I think probably some of the failures we had being involved in tech is that there's always a balance between a push and pull in terms of we want to use this technology and does it fit up to the business problem and vice versa. So I think there's lessons learned there. Sometimes just waiting for that right opportunity rather than trying to force a piece of technology. And I say that because quite often then when you do the analysis, if you try and look at your figures afterwards, it's you've got nothing to work with. That's probably one of the things. And the final lesson learned, maybe is leading a team, is that Alex Ferguson saying, don't look for conflict. There's a lot of conflict out there. Just wait for it to find you. I think that's the biggest thing. Wait. Don't send someone a message on Slack. Don't send them an email. And I'm saying this, and people are thinking, oh, well done, Einstein. You figured that one out, did you? But we all go through it. I think it's just you're dealing with human beings. Just wait until you see them, and by the time you see them, you probably have a better sense of, is it even worth saying, because they probably know that given things needed or not needed. So that's probably it.
Okay, so, and this is kind of the reason why I wanted to get onto the podcast early, because I thought you might use this as a get out clause. So, excluding your podcast, what's been your biggest, and this can be personal or professional, but what's been your biggest or personal success in the last 12 months?
So the charity thing. Yeah, the charity thing. I'm not having a beer for 12 months. Man, that was not a good idea. So I enjoyed that. So that jokes aside, that was a big achievement. I did some half marathons, but they didn't really feel like achievements. I can think of better things for that. I have, in my spare time, started a course with the London School of Journalism, doing a postgraduate diploma with them. I'm nearly done on the first module, and I'm doing it in my spare time in the evenings. I've been speaking and interviewing my local councillors. I've been researching about the government. I've been writing reviews on Dumbo, the latest movie. That I've fully immersed myself into that, and then that, whilst I'm nearly at the finish line, that for me is something that really sticks out.
Oh wow! Okay, sounds awesome. Side note, what was your personal review of Dumbo?
It was terrible. I think all of these, the Disney films are classics. You can't just remake a classic, right? I think they're patched together. I think the characters are inconsistent. Have you seen it? Yeah, I think the characters are inconsistent. I think where Dumbo's learning to fly, and his ears stop flapping, and he can't fly, but he is flying. But you cut from that scene to him bloody jumping off at the top, and he's whizzing around, flying to his mum. I'm like, wait a minute, how did that happen?
Yeah.
My wife told me to shut up, and my kids enjoyed it. So there you go.
Okay. I wanted it to be something it wasn't, and kind of, I like Dumbo. I've kind of always liked Dumbo. I liked what we did with the actual elephant, especially the emotions in the eyes. I thought we nailed that really well. What's the director's name? Who did it? What's his name?
Oh God! Don't do this to yourself, Lloyd. Because I know Danny Hoffman did the soundtrack. Tim Burton. It didn't feel like a Tim Burton film at all to me.
No, that's exactly what I was going to say to you. It didn't feel very Tim Burton at all. I like Danny DeVito. I like him in kind of Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Obviously, a completely different character, but yeah, it was interesting, and I kind of think there's now you're seeing Aladdin, and then kind of Lion King's coming out, and then the Jungle Book thing was kind of done again, I think. But I think it shows the lack of creativity in Hollywood in general. And, if you've got to go back to original ideas, and there's a bigger question to be answered, which is a shame, really. But, kind of off topic. But, so if I was to say to you, right, okay, man, you're coming out of a football stadium, and let's say it's Spurs, yeah? After a defeat.
Yeah. Tremendous stadium.
Yeah. And kind of, there's a billboard, and you can put anything you want on that billboard. And it can be a message. You can make the billboard interactive. You can do whatever you want with that billboard. But a million people are going to look at it and engage with it. What would you do? Or what would you put on it?
Calm is contagious.
Okay. Care to elaborate?
Yeah, I think it's easy. Sometimes it's easy to get angry in situations. Sometimes I see people getting panicky. We see projects, the timeline's going to go, or the budgets. Everyone's losing their heads, and this is not just at work, right? I think, yeah, it takes a lot of work to be calm whilst not being blasé. That is an effort.
Okay. Okay.
You're calm, you're rational, you make better informed decisions, coming back to the truth and being objective. Yeah, I see a lot of people panic, fluster. I do those things, right? If we see anyone see me on a stage, I'll get like everyone else. But I think trying to ground yourself, and I know if we're going to mindfulness type of things, I don't know, but trying to ground yourself and be calm whilst everyone else is losing their heads is an achievement.
Okay. Kind of taking this a little bit different way. Can you remember the kind of the first time you ever got in trouble and what you did?
I was an absolute. I've already told you I was one of 7, right? School of Hard Knocks. I was a tearaway when I was a young lad. So I can probably think of a few situations. Let me go through. So, yes, doing things that young boys do. Yeah. I won't give you a specific example.
Okay. So kind of, I think
I'll tell you what. I told my school teacher to spank my ass and call me Charlie once, and I got booted out for 3 days. I watched South Park on the Friday on Channel 4.
South Park has a lot of things to kind of, a lot of children have a lot to blame on South Park, I think. I remember South Park. It was an interesting show. It was definitely an interesting show. So kind of going back to maybe before, I don't know how old you was when you asked the teachers to spank your ass and call it Charlie, but kind of, if I was to say to you, explain what you do to a 5-year-old, how would you explain what you do?
Oh, I love that question. What would I say? Well, I've got a 5-year-old, so I'm picturing talking to my youngest Georgia. I try things and see if they work. No, I try fun things and see if they work. That's what I would say.
Okay. So, in your role right this second, and this can be again 12 months, what's the most fun thing you've done?
Oh, wow. So many things. I've gone to the state of Georgia and benchmarked a project when I started, the Homer Simpson project I referenced earlier. That was a lot of fun. We've done some awards. We won some awards. Those were, I'm not bigging up the award here. I'm saying the night was fun with the team. We've gone through a restructure and built a new team. That's been fun. That's been really fun to work with people, new people, and follow them on their own journey. I've got to go to Paris a number of times and trying to teach myself French. That's fun. So I think what I'm saying is the experiences I've had have been really fun.
Okay. And it was interesting when you mentioned about suicide and whatnot, and a little bit earlier I was kind of thinking about, so obviously my kind of world, if you like, is experience design. And I was reading recently about how they've done this thing now on bridges, how to make bridges, because I was reading about suicide and bridges, and how their approach to experience design for bridges, and kind of actually making a bridge not be this isolated place and making it feel so much different. I think it was China had one where it was kind of saying it was nudging you through the bridge, kind of like it was prompting you to move to a telephone box. Near me there's a really big bridge, and actually what they've done is they've asked lots of school kids to write little messages on the bridge. So I like this kind of this approach. Whether it's kind of impactful or not, I don't know. But you know what? If it buys 10 seconds for someone to walk past and save someone's life, like last year, my brother stopped someone from jumping off a bridge. And
I remember this. Yeah, maybe saying it.
Yeah, and he said it was the most impactful experience he's ever had, and yet he didn't jump off a bridge or anything like that. He was talking about kind of having how he had to talk him down, and how he had to say, actually, it's not just you now, it's me, because you brought me into your world and you do this. And it was kind of, I found it really impactful. And actually, I don't know, I think bridges is a scary one for me. I mean, all suicide's scary, right? Like, whether it be bridges, whether it be overdose, whether it be whatnot. But yeah, I don't understand where my thought pattern went, and it just went completely.
It's very interesting. The China Bridge design thing is very interesting. And you're right. It's a very it's a topic that needs not to be normalized, but it's a topic that needs to be discussed because it's a serious problem. It's a scary and serious problem.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And I used to do this piece when I was used to be over at O2, and I used to tell them this story about this guy who kind of never got acknowledged. And we see it all the time in work, we'll walk past each other. You all right? Yeah. You all right? Yeah. Walk on. And I actually think we never ever stop and go, no, honestly, are you all right? Like, we say, are you okay? And then walk on. We never really hang around to wait for the true response. And I used to tell this storytelling piece around this guy who kind of became invisible. All the signs were there that something was going to happen. Anyway, but he kind of makes his way to this bridge. I'm fast tracking the story. And as he's about to step off a bridge, he turns around and a car drives past him, and a little kid in the back waves at him. And he steps back over onto the bridge and walks away. Please get him. And we say, do we mind asking you why he stopped? And he said, because for a split second somebody noticed me. And I just think that for me is the scary thing within culture, especially in corporate. How many people are walking around with these fake smiles on who actually inside are really sad? That's the scary thing. And I think when we talk about employee experience and the bigger picture of culture and stuff, I think that's the biggest problem to address more than anything, definitely. But sorry, we took that very, very deep there, didn't we? Oh, sorry about that. So kind of what's the problem? What's the biggest problem you're facing now? And this could be, let's go into L&D. In L&D, what is it you're facing right now?
Yeah, I can start taming up my bins and my cat who won't come in. So L&D, biggest problem, I think for us is, so we're having the conversation internally about LMS. Do we need an LMS? And what's the LMS? And it's kind of like, why have we used the word LMS? Have we defined the problem already? What's the problem we're trying to achieve? So that's one thing. That's quite big. But there's two big ones. There's that one, and I mentioned the design of the team. And so making sure that we're supporting the business units as much as best possible. So we've put together like a process, an agile process, if you like. Use the word there. But just making sure that we're transparent. I think making sure that we deliver impact is the biggest challenge.
Okay, so I want to dip into them. So talk to me about LMS. So kind of, do you have an LMS now already in house? Is that kind of already set in? And are you looking at it and going, do we rip it out, or kind of do you not have anything in place right now?
Yeah. So when I joined, as a caveat, before the company had already procured a Moodle system, which is fantastic. It's the world's biggest. I wouldn't call it LMS. Call it a virtual learning environment from Australia. I'll stop waffling because people listening probably know what Moodle is. And it was great because it could be built bespoke and it could add different things in, but it was absolutely horrendous for the teams from an administration perspective. So like everywhere, we need to prove people are doing certain things. And the company I work for are involved with low carbon energy. So people who are working on power stations or health and safety environments, they have the governor. What am I looking for? Anyway, the governing body of them. The words lost me. We must stipulate that it have to be the phrase in ticket. So for the specific programs, and so that's one of our biggest challenges. Like lots of other organizations. Actually, this year we did focus groups with our people. So we went around to all of our different sites and just did like breakfast mornings for our internal colleagues. And they were telling us that the process isn't simplified to book a course, to get learning, there's password fatigue. We've got 3 different networks for security purposes, and what you can do in one network isn't the same as another. So if you share a YouTube video, so all of these things are the crux of the issue.
Okay, so I think it's really interesting with LMS, and there's a piece in this talk, what I'm doing, and I've kind of brought this talk up in literally every episode of my podcast, and I can't help it because I feel like it's addressing a few big problems. And one of the things is, do we need an LMS? When someone says about an LMS, I'm like, probably not. You probably just need a community. That's probably what you need first and foremost. And fundamentally, if you do need an LMS, you probably need a really lightweight one, what is very just for compliance. The rest of the stuff doesn't need to be LMS focused. But obviously without knowing your world, I find it's an interesting question that do we need an LMS? Because like you say, it's like if you've already defined a problem, you've already said you've gone solution. Not you personally, but that's kind of what we do, right? We go solution, LMS. And I think actually in this vendor space right now, there's so much smoke and mirrors between what's being marketed and what you actually get, that it's a tricky one. It's a tricky one if you do decide for an LMS. It's a tricky one to pick in the right one. And actually, let's throw in some other buzzwords. LMS, learning experience platform, blah, 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 blah.
Get our LRS out as well, yeah?
Yeah, you've got to get that bad boy in. So it's like, it's an interesting debate, and I think it's one that will never end until the next thing comes out, and next thing, and then actually when someone realises, shit, we've got everything we need around us, and we don't need this other new platform.
I think it's a secret organisation that no one sees. Maybe they're alien life forms, and they are actually keeping e-learning alive, and they realise the only way to keep e-learning alive is to promote all of these different LMSs. That's what I think's happening. Wow.
There we go. This has just turned into a Joe Rogan podcast. Conspiracy theories 101.
Let me just put that out. Thank you.
So, all right, and so we know what your kind of problems are with LMS, and kind of you talk about actually being of value to the business and being transparent. So, if I was to come around to you and say I've got this problem, Lloyd, of an LMS and being transparent, how would you address the problem if it was mine?
Good question. I think I like the questions that surround how do you know what things do you tell you that you've got this problem? Is it an opinion? Is there any data? You say you're getting loads of requests. How many? How many of those things? What would life look like if you didn't have this thing you wanted? Would it be the end of the world? How would you adapt? I think I'd probably pivot around those questions.
Yeah, it's always good kind of about new world and old world and comparing. And actually, does the platform make the new world possible, or is it just you and your figmented kind of your crazy mind thinking? A bit like how we are, the new iPhone's going to change our life. The new LMS is going to change our world, our corporate world. It's a weird one. It's a weird one.
But I love standing in the future as well, by the way. As I said earlier, I think this bit like a meditative exercise and saying, okay, in 2 years' time, if you didn't have this problem, what would you what have you done to get to that place where you're feeling happy and working backwards from there? I don't know. I'm telling you, I'm to suck eggs here, aren't I? But it really works well for me in my mind.
Yeah, and I think we talk about kind of this reverse engineering from the endpoint back, and I wonder how many people actually do that. How many do that as a process and going, this is where it is, and let's work backwards. I think a lot of people talk about it, right? But we don't actually do it. And actually, in order to do that correctly, you have to stand in the future, right? It's kind of the first thing to do on that. But I think it's a tricky one to master that, to be honest. Kind of standing in the future and kind of going, okay, what does that look like now? It's there, or no, it's not there, or whatever. I think it's a good skill, but I think it's a hard one to kind of master as well.
I think you need to be vulnerable. I think you need to be open in both those ways.
Yeah, definitely. So, all right, and so I guess kind of we're talking about vulnerability. When was the last time you was out your comfort zone, and when was the last time you was vulnerable?
Oh God. And
actually, I want to branch off that as well, and I want that in professional and personal maybe. Oh, one of you.
It happens a lot. Yeah, it happens a lot. So here we go. Look at me trying to think of some big, impactful thing. I think last night. So I coach a football academy team, Western Football Club, and we're doing fitness tests. and I got a friend who's a strength and conditioner at Bristol City ladies team. He's done very well. He's very well. Chris's name is, and I sent Chris a number of tests I thought we could do, and he was like, "Mate, you know, those days of me being a knowledge are gone." He was like, "Mate, I've just given him e-learning, put it that way, in his world, and he's torn them up. So I've gone bleep tests, squats in a minute, all that type of stuff, and he's given me all these different tests and apps and things, and yeah, wow. And so we had all these parents watching, all of the kids ready to do it. And so just trying these new, I was out my comfort zone, but I liked it. I was learning something. Learning something new. So that's probably a personal one. But stuff like this, those types of, I'm always trying to put myself out of my comfort zone. And then professionally, I think having conversations with people and saying that they don't, their job no longer exists is a very hard conversation to have.
Yeah. I mean, how do you even prep for that, right? It's kind of, I remember when I was at O2 and I had to tell somebody, he's literally, his wife had just given birth. I remember at O2 kind of, and I say O2, it's O2 Tesco Mobile. I mean, you weren't allowed to give that news over the phone.
Yeah.
And it was like, you got to have this conversation with him. I was like, okay, that makes sense. But he's literally just had a baby girl. Like, and to ask him to come into the office to say, your job's not available. It's hard, isn't it? Like, you can master delivering a message, but especially with you, Lloyd, I'm assuming these people you've had these conversations with have been in your team, you know them personally. It's
been on nights out, all that type of stuff. I think, so if I have a one-to-one and I know, that I try and read a lot of psychology books, and none of them still I think are better than the gym paradox, I must say, in terms of tangibles you can use after. And so if I have a one-to-one with someone, I'll say, what do you want to cover today? I'll have all my bullet points, and I just think it's a great way to get there. Everyone's got a chimp, haven't they? Everyone's got a rock in their pocket or something. Yeah. Let's nail that. Let's sort your stuff and let's go through that. When it comes through to what's it called? Having those types of conversations, I just think the best way is just to be, pull the trigger as quickly as possible, be direct, be passionate afterwards. But people don't want it. It's like when you give anyone feedback, they just wait. Some people just wait for the result, right? And so it's a big deal. So that's what that's my approach really. I took, rightly or wrongly, and that might change with experience. But I thought, no one wants to crap here. They just want to know. Yeah. So let me tell you, and I'll tell you why, and I'll also fully understand, and I fully get, and I don't expect you even want to listen to me, but I'll try and do my best, and I'll try and do what feels right. And if I was telling my kids what I did, I, in my heart of hearts, believe that I try to do the best I can. And I think it was even difficult reflecting in my mind as I'm saying that. I think that's all we can do, right? And maybe life will make it better.
Yeah.
For me, that is.
Yeah, no, definitely. So, your podcast is called The Future of Learning.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the future of learning? And I don't mean your podcast, but what do you see it as?
Good question. I go straight away to tech, don't I? I definitely think it involves human experience and human intervention.
Yeah.
So, and I say that in a way it's not just class. So I'm not going to say classroom. I'm not going to say blender. I'm not going to say that. But humans will be involved somewhere since the dawn of time. I mean, just look at this. I think if you look at the success rates of language learning, digitally and face to face. Well, okay, you get my point. I think technology is obviously going to play a massive part. I think we were banging on last time we spoke about voice. I just still don't really believe that people get voice. People don't. I don't think they get it. And I think when you talk about it, they're like, yeah, my Alexa doesn't understand me. I'm like, mate, it's why are you thinking about today? It's the technology's on a journey. That's my opinion. I think mandatory training will be happening in cars, electric cars, driverless cars in the future, which will be connected to some ticketing system. I think my daughter will be learning in such a way, or my daughters will be learning in such a way. So yeah, I think it will be an evolution of the experience that humans have with technology. There you go. That's waffle.
Oh, I like that. I like it. It's a good one. I completely agree. I think it will become, for me, I think the future is in the design. And when I say design, I'm going to use the two biggest things what are near and dear to me, because why the hell not? Human-centered design and experience design. And when I say experience design, I don't mean the experience design how our industry is using it, and the fact of experience design is a learning experience design. I think learning experience design is a bullshit term. You're an experience designer and the byproduct is learning, or the byproduct is this, or the byproduct is that. Learning experience designer, I think it's a fucking BS term. So I went on a masterclass over a weekend in London. So I've kind of been doing experience design for donkeys of years, but I never really knew it was experience design, probably until about 4 years ago. And so have you ever heard of Punch Drunk?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so I went on their masterclass. I got invited to go on their masterclass, and it was like the most intense 2 days of my life. But I tell you what, it's completely sharpened my design thinking. And when I say design thinking, I don't mean the term design thinking. It's design as thinking, and I think that's what it should be.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah.
And it's so when we talk about our design, you know, a lot of people design about like it looks nice, you know, UI, UX, it looks nice. And actually, coming out the back of that, there's 15 different layers of design. And I'm like, I bet when people use about 2 or 3 of them when it comes to designing their experience. And my experience design is that I think experiences open the doors to allow changing, and you have to give people experiences for them to be aware in order for you to deploy whatever you need to deploy. Fundamentally, if you don't make them care, then you can do whatever you want, and it won't matter to them. It won't matter. But yeah, it was an intent. I had to sound like a little wave to say I can't talk too much about it, and it was the fact that as soon as you go on an experience design thing, and the first thing they do is give you an experience, I was like, yep, this is perfect. So I think it is design. I think it's design as thinking, and the tech is going to be that. The tech is going to continue to be that enabler. I think it's just going to be enable us to do better and quicker and faster things, and remove less load of shit what we don't need to think about. So I like the fact that I think, you know, we talked about voices compliance and stuff like that. I think that's a quick win. I think the only downside is obviously in the state where it's in now, it's still in a bit of a dumb state. But like you say, if you're looking at now, you're never going to going to get anywhere. Yeah. So you should be looking exactly 4 or 5 years or whatever. So what's your biggest 80-20 hack? And when I say 80-20, so I get you're
cool. I love it. Yeah. Well, actually, I have a recurring calendar thing on a Friday in the green box where I make myself do 80-20s of my job. Okay, 8 hours sleep, 100%.
Okay.
So I used to have a set time when I get up in the morning, and I go to bed, and if I went to bed late, I still get up at the time. Nah, maybe some days it's 7, 8 hours. I'll plan 8 hours. If that means going to bed early the following night, maybe having a nap in the afternoon, doesn't matter. I am a different person with 8 hours sleep.
Really?
Yes, more energy. I snack less. I work better. I'm patient. Yeah. And the science suggests that it's a good thing to do. Matthew Walker, Why We Sleep, a fantastic book.
Yes. And if you want to read a book before that, read a book called Lights Out. Have you read that? Have you come across that?
No, I'm not. I'm making a note of that.
And it's about actually if you've got one little pinhole of light coming through your... It uses this as an example, but if you get one like pinhole of light coming through on your body while you're asleep, your whole body, you know, you could be in a pitch black area, but when that light hits that part of your leg, it starts to stimulate you waking up. Even though 99% of the room is black and you're asleep, it's talking about how that one pinhole of light. It's a good book. It's a thick book.
Yeah.
I didn't read it all in one go. It was like in and out. But Why We Sleep is a great book. for sure.
Do you know,
I'm only a bit into it though, to be honest.
yeah, I'll check that out. And just on that note, actually, another 80/20 hack I've um, discovered is if you want to buy a book, and if it's a current book, out in the last couple of years, you can bet your bottom dollar that someone's on a podcast. And so sometimes a couple of books, I've just listened to the author, a couple of 40-minute podcasts, and you get all of the main points rather than go, it's a great, so
That's a great show, actually. That's a great show. I love it. I love it. So kind of this is probably coming towards like the last L&D question. Well, probably one of them. But why should people come into L&D? Like, we look at apprenticeships, grads, but maybe it's not even that. Maybe it's people within our corp environment who are looking like for a bit of a career shift from, I don't know, let's say from marketing or from whatever, into whatever.
I know what you mean. Yeah, I do know what you mean. I think they should come in to make impact people's lives. As grandiose as that may seem, I think start really high. And when you asked that question, my mind went to two things: people coming from outside of, let's just say, large businesses, but also people who are in those and they think, okay, what I'll do is I'll go into L&D and do a bit, do some fun stuff. I'll say yes to that senior stakeholder and yes to that senior stakeholder. I think without actually wanting to know what the fundamentals of learning, training, all of these pedagogical principles, what they are, or even being inquisitive, man, that's a recipe for disaster. Massive time, because, well, that's my opinion.
Okay, and I think that's a good opinion. I think you should, from coming from another area of a business, you should be coming in L&D to bring the tools what you know into L&D. I think that's why you should join L&D, to bring the tools what you've got, what the skill set what you've got, what you see a gap in the L&D team doesn't have, and that's where you get that transferableness of it, that wash over. Yeah. But so I guess who's 3 people who everybody should follow? And actually, I'm going to pilot this question out of you. Who's the 3 people who should follow professionally, and 3 people who should follow personally?
Good question. I knew the first one was coming, so I'll do the personal ones after. So I think professionally, aside from yourself, of course,
Smoother.
Mark's Sanders. They're not doing so already. And anyone from Filtered, Toby. But start with Mark, 'cause he pumps out more of the articles that I see. I don't think you get articles in Harvard Business Review if you're, if you're just smashing blogs out like I do or something like that. So I think he's got a very unique mind, and I think it's quite very objective. So that's one. I really like to hear Lloyd Hoffman. I don't think she doesn't really pump out much that I see on like Twitter, and I mean I'm in and out of LinkedIn at the moment. But what I would say is go and look at her stuff on her website and look at some of her talks that's been published onto YouTube. Fascinating, brilliant. I love it. I just love the way her mind works, but I love the way in which she portrays ideas. Yeah. It works for me. And David James. Well, he's a Chelsea fan, as I learned recently, so that's a downer. But he doesn't tweet too much about Chelsea, which is good. Whereas I tweet a lot about Tottenham. But yeah, he's a great guy. He's got this knack of being an expert and knowing a lot and having great networks and contacts, but being so humble and helpful at the same time. It's a wonderful synergy he's got. He's tweeting more, I've noticed now. He's putting stuff out on LinkedIn as well. And the advice he gives, it's practical. He's talking from experience, not opinion.
Yeah.
The 3 people who who are the interesting characters that I follow on social media? There's a chap. I'm going to log into my Twitter. I don't know if you've heard of him, but I believe his name, or his Twitter username, is at Naval. Naval, yes, at Naval. This person, I don't know how I stumbled onto his account about a year or so ago, but he has an unbelievable knack of concising real life philosophy into a tweet or a set of tweets. And some days, like you do on Twitter, you scroll through and you think, this is unbelievable. And it opens your mind, whether he's talking about finance, politics, whatever. So at Naval is one person. I'm following a lot of journalists, as aforementioned interest suggests wise. But there's no one really stands out. I would say follow a number of journalists because you'll get differences of opinion on similar topics. That's what I like. That's a bit of a cop-out, but that's what I do. It works for me. Informed opinions. And the final one, who was it? It was a wrestler. Mick Foley.
Okay.
He's just really interesting. Some of these, I watched wrestling back in the day, but some of these guys are living really, really interesting lives and telling really interesting stories. He did a comedy gig, I think, or something at Sheffield United Football Club recently. So yeah, that's it. They're the three people.
Okay. And what 5 tips, and see I'm going with 5 here, I'm increasing the numbers as we go here, Lloyd. What 5 tips would you give to someone who wants to be the next Lloyd? And when I say Lloyd, I mean you in your position, what you're in right now, professionally.
Yeah, okay. Have a USP and know it and go all in on it, whatever it is. Be confident in that and just do that. But you got to have one thing, to complement everyone else's one thing. I think don't be a douchebag. No, you're not important than anyone else. If you go off on leave, the company's not going to go bust. You don't have to check your email at 8:10. Lead by example. That'd be the second thing. I think the third thing is treat people as you expect to be treated. Make a note of when it's team members and peers' birthdays. Put it in your diary. Send that little note. Those things matter. It shows that you care about people. And you can't fake caring, by the way. Actually care about people you work with 100%. The fourth one would be the conflict thing I said earlier. Don't go searching for conflict. Dress your ego down. There's bigger, more important things. And the fifth one would be always think about tomorrow, because you might do some great stuff. You might do a great project. You might do a great thing. But if you're thinking about what's next and what's coming tomorrow, it's going to ground you and it's going to keep you focused and not stale.
Okay, sound advice, Lloyd. So, last deep question. Do you even like yourself?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
That's a very deep question, my friend.
Yeah, it can be deep, it can be light, it can be whatever you need it to be. So, at the start of the show, I asked you to pick 4 numbers.
It's just like it's an onslaught of questions here.
Yeah.
It's now like turning into news night. I love it.
Yeah. So these 4 questions, and kind of these are 4 items that you find on a desert island, and I want to know what you do with them.
I'm trying to think of the numbers. I'm trying to do my recall here.
So you did 22.
22.
And that
50,
was a Sharper.
81. Yes, and 10.
Then you did.
Oh, sorry.
No?
I wasn't listening.
No, it's fine.
What have I got to do?
FYI, you did 100% on recall of numbers. Well done.
Yeah.
So, number 22 was a Sharpie pen. Number 10 was a glow stick. Number 82 was a eraser, a rubber. And number 50 was a keychain. So, you're on a desert island. What are you doing with these 4 items?
A Sharpie, is that one of the highlighter?
Yeah, that
Yeah.
like a marker pen. Yeah.
If I had a Sharpie, I'm on a desert island, I've got nothing to write on, have I? I think what I'd do is find like a tree or something where I can use the Sharpie, and I'd write myself humorous little notes so that when I'm feeling a bit down or when I'm feeling a bit lonely on my desert island, I just have a little chuckle at them, and they'd be stupid notes. A glow stick. Well, that's quite obvious, isn't it? You've got to have your party when the birds are flying and the sun's set. You've got to go for it. What would I do with an eraser? How would I do with an eraser on a desert island? I would take the eraser part apart, and I would have one little bit of the eraser that was quite big, and I'd have 22 other smaller or medium-sized erasers, and I'd make a little football pitch, and I'd still use the Sharpie and make one of the team the opposite color to the eraser, assuming they're not the same color, and I'd have my eraser game of Subbuteo, every Saturday.
Okay.
And the keychain would be awarded to the winner of that game.
Beautiful.
So one of the team would be I'd carve out a little space in one of the trees, and one of the teams, all 11 little dots, would sit there with the keychain, like the Champions League trophy.
Yeah, but probably won't talk about that one, eh? So
no, we won't. We won't. So projecting my anxiety of what I'm losing now. Thank you for reminding me.
So obviously, like, you of all people know, we never kind of continue. We never really truly actually stopped growing and developing. So at the beginning of the show, I asked you what you wanted to be, and you said kind of a footballer, right? A striker. If I was to ask that question now, given where you are, what do you want to be when you grow older?
I don't know, but what I do know is if I'm committed and I'm prepared to take a few hits, that I'll do it. Okay.
I love it. So, Lloyd, where can people find out a little bit more about what you're up to and what you're doing?
So like everyone, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm also on Twitter at LloydDean UK. You can check out, if you've not listened to any of the podcasts, you can check that out just by searching The Future of Learning on major podcast distributors. And I'm on Instagram here and there, so I delete it from my phone and I add it and I delete it and stuff like that. So yeah, that's what they can find out, or they can just, I was going to say email me if they drop me a message on LinkedIn.
Okay. One more question. It's just popped to mind.
Oh
yeah. So you are a big rap hip hop fan.
Yes, yeah? I love it.
Here
we go. I'm staring at the Hip Hop Raise Me book.
Okay. If I had to say, what one hip hop track would you use to sum up your life? What would it be?
That for me is the deepest question you've asked. What would I say? I would probably say What's the Difference by Dr. Dre.
Oh, good choice. Lloyd, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.
Pleasure's mine. Thank you.
Cheers, Lloyd. Bye-bye.